Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Conversations with Coaches podcast. I was looking at my coffee real briefly because I was about to take a sip. We used to call this podcast Coffee with Coaches because I usually record it in the mornings. I know, real original, right? But it's the Conversations with Coaches podcast. And I think I almost just made my guest almost spit out her water. I am speaking with today. I've already had the delight of speaking with Glodean Champion. Glodean is a keynote speaker, author, and transformational leader who specializes in leadership development, team building, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. She is a Six Sigma Black Belt and draws on her extensive background to transform the lives of her clients. Her life's purpose is to leave people better than she found them. I mean, yes, 100%, 1000% yes. Glodean, as I said, I'm already grateful for you today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for talking with me.
Thank you for having me. Really nice to meet you, although I feel like we've already known each other.
It's like we're picking up where we left off, even though
Exactly.
it's the first
time. Exactly.
Well, let's start this conversation at the beginning of your coaching journey. And this kind of happens for different coaches in different ways, but how did you realize, or who told you, or how did you come to decide that you were a coach, that you wanted to be a coach? And then how did you go from there to the business you have today?
So this is kind of crazy. I have always been an unintentional coach.
Mm-hmm.
From my first job at 17 in corporate America, I don't remember the specific thing that happened, but we were in a meeting. Somebody did something that wasn't correct and they covered it up like most people do. And then I did something that wasn't correct and I apologized and asked questions about what I did wrong. So how do I do it better? And somehow, and this has happened in other spaces, but this began a series of relationships with the leadership team because they realized that I was the person that was willing to be vulnerable. In other situations, if they asked a question and they really wanted an answer, people would tell them what they thought they wanted to hear. And I would tell them the truth or how I felt based on the information. So at 17, the CEO of the company that hired me was asking me advice on things. Not necessarily business related things, but people related things and relationship related things. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I was just giving him my opinion. And that seemed to continue through my career. So I was always an unofficial coach. And then once I started teaching is also coaching, right? Because you're working with students who need to understand. And I really want to study this phenomena of people going to school, especially college, right? And not asking questions. You are paying money to learn this thing that you don't know. And then when the teacher says, does anyone have any questions? Nobody raises their hand, right? So in my classes, I would wind up having to coach students to understand that you're here to learn. And part of the learning process is asking questions. And the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. That's what my mother always told me. So fast forward, in 2013 or 14, I worked for a debt collection agency. I was helping them build their corporate compliance department. And they brought in a Six Sigma Black Belt or a Master Black Belt. And I got partnered up with him. And the work that we were doing was process improvement and a lot of Kaizen events, which are rapid improvement events, which meant bringing people together who were employees who didn't believe that their voices mattered because leaders felt like they knew the process better. So then there was coaching in that space, right? Coaching the leaders and coaching the people on the team. Again, not recognizing what I'm doing. And then George Floyd was murdered. I didn't know what was going on. I asked the universe, that's how I refer to God or whoever, the higher power, what I could do to affect change. Like, what can I by myself do to help in this space? And the answer came back, love. And I thought that meant, just tell people you love them, do kind things. And then it was like clear to me that it was about being, teaching, and spreading love. And then all of a sudden, I started getting official requests for coaching from leaders that I'd worked with. And I was like, I don't want to do this. because it felt to me like everybody after when COVID hit, everybody became a coach of some sort. And I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying I didn't want to be in that bucket of coaches. And so I resisted it for a long time. But I kept getting these requests and I was doing it, but kind of reluctantly doing it. And then I got someone reached out to take a certification class. This is a really long answer. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. Please.
A friend of mine reached out to me and said I should take this certification class. And I was in my year of yes. I don't know. Did you read that book by Shonda Rhimes?
I didn't read the book, but I definitely had a lot of conversations with people who did.
Yes, it's amazing when you say yes to things, right? So I said yes. I got certified in Tilt 365's laser coaching, and it changed the game for me. So I went from being a reluctant coach to now intentionally coaching leaders and prospective leaders on how to best lead their teams, and like everything else kind of unfolded from there. So I'd like to say that I have 35 plus years of unintentional coaching experience and about 6 or 7 years of intentional coaching experience.
I could let you go. You were fine. There were so many different parts where I had like wanted to jump in and like start talking about stuff, but I was like, this is great. What happened next? And then what happened? I love, there's something that was like, it really emerged as you were talking. It almost seems like you've been dancing almost all your life with questions. Engaged in questions being at the heart of everything, a willingness to be open to them, a willingness to ask them, and then to, after a while, after responding to them, find your answers to certain questions in action and intention, not just nodding. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It's like, no. Action, saying yes and moving into that. And that's like almost like continuing this dance you have with increasingly better and better and better questions that get deeper and deeper and deeper into the heart of how you want to live and love and serve. And then how the people who come to you to learn how to do that can do that for themselves, and then teach other people, and then pass it on and pass it on. It sounds and it feels, as you describe it, just like this lovely lifelong dance.
That is so beautiful that you said. It's so true. The funny thing is I went whale watching with some friends on Saturday, and this was my second whale watching trip. My birthday was a couple weeks ago and I went on my birthday, but we only saw the whale. We saw one whale a couple of times, and I asked a bunch of questions then, but then this time we saw one whale or two whales, but a bunch of times. And the more I saw the whale, the more I noticed about it as I took pictures. And so I was asking a million questions, and my friend leaned over and said, "You do not have a scarcity of questions." And I said, "But I want to know, like, I'm curious about, And then it made me think, like, yeah, I'm like that. And then my 12-year-old self, I have an inner 12-year-old that I nurture. I believe in her. I love her dearly. So when I do things like that, like, she comes to the forefront, right? So my questions are not quite intellectual or whatever, but they're, well, I mean, they are, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway.
Questions are shaped to serve the purpose. Sometimes questions about exploring, sometimes questions are about acquiring data. Sometimes questions are just designed to provoke more questions. Each question kind of has its own purpose, dances to its own rhythm, to keep that analogy going.
I love that. Yes. Well, because my mother, the first time I came home with a bad grade, like I got a C in something, and my mother asked me why I got a C, and I said, because I didn't understand all of it. And she said, "Well, did you ask any questions?" And I said, "No." And she said, "So I'm sending you to school not to ask questions." And I said, "Well, I don't want to ask a stupid question." And that's when she said, "There are no stupid questions. The only stupid one is the one you don't ask." So it's kind of true, though, when you think about it, right? I mean, I remember sitting in meetings where people clearly didn't understand what was being asked of them. You could see it on their faces, but nobody wanted to be the one to say, "I don't understand." So guess what? I would be like that. I don't understand, for the sake of the team, because to me, I felt like if they walk out of this room unclear, and I'm the only one who has asked the question or didn't ask the question because I understood it, then I'm going to be fighting with them about what I heard versus what they heard, even though they didn't ask the questions. So I would ask anyway. I love I
Yeah, I
love
love
that you called it a dance, though.
it's what it feels like. And also I just love that, like, you kind of walked right up to it. Like, what do you have to lose by asking?
Nothing.
Very rarely is there ever a circumstance in which not asking a question might even be considered the correct call. And
Yeah.
I can't even think of one off the top of my head. I'm not even going to try because it's so rare, so as to be irrelevant for our conversation. But what are you risking by asking the
Exactly.
question? And versus, what are you possibly gaining? What are the
Right.
people around you possibly gaining? That's another thing too, that it took me a little while to start thinking about it in that way. It's like, sometimes it's not just about the questions I'm asking to get the answers I need or to go in the direction that I want.
Right.
What do the people around me need to hear? Maybe
Right.
they need to hear somebody asking these questions. Maybe they need to hear somebody try and answer them, depending
Right.
on the question. There's so many good possible outcomes to asking a question, and I'm hard pressed to think of one bad outcome just from asking.
I can't even think of one. Uh, and that's what laser coaching is about. Are you familiar with laser coaching?
Not very much though. I've heard the name, but I don't know very much about the process.
So, in a nutshell, laser coaching is getting to the heart of the matter by focusing on the person rather than the problem, but having the right questions at your disposal so you can help your clients see themselves in the problem and not as part of the problem.
Ooh, okay.
Right?
Okay, I
Because
like
most
that.
times in coaching, we focus on the problem. And when you focus on the problem, then the person that you're coaching sees themselves disconnected from the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on the person and you help them see how they're contributing to the problem, right? And I don't believe in right and wrong. I work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space as well. And I feel like one of the problems that we have in life in general is that we're so focused on who's right and who's wrong. But if we could just stop doing that and look at each moment as a teachable moment, there is always an opportunity to learn and grow. And it starts with us, right? How am I affecting this situation? And sometimes it just means shut up, stop talking. Maybe if you just stop talking, you'll hear what someone else is saying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I feel both as both encouraging and exciting. And I'm also, it's kind of like, yeah, I've been learning that lesson for most of my life, and I think I'm going to keep learning it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then it comes to the questions, right? If you can stop talking and let the other person speak, it will undoubtedly create some type of curiosity in you, right? Sometimes people react because they're reacting to the trigger, and you don't know that they're reacting to a trigger. You just see them reacting. Or sometimes they're stressed. Like, we all behave a certain way when we're stressed, and people get short. But if you just, instead of, lashing out, you just ask, like, are you whatever that question needs to be. But sometimes it just requires, it comes to you when you can be quiet.
And sometimes that quiet and then the question that comes out of it, it just creates a space into
Exactly.
which whatever it is that you can't see, and maybe they can't see either, can just
Right.
pour into it, and then you can work on it together.
Exactly.
Man, I want to just keep talking like this all day with you, but we haven't even gotten to like your coaching business today. We've already been chatting. So let's talk at least for a few minutes about everything that you're doing today, who you coach, how you coach them. Do you have any specific types of people or specific stages or roles that you coach people through or into? And do you have a particular way in which you go about your coaching?
Okay. I'll start with the
first. It's a big question.
Yeah, it was. That's good though. I coach. Here's what I'm going to say about coaching, because I coach a number of different titled people, from executives from CEOs and VPs to managers and directors, or employees that are either interested in making some type of change. Usually those come to me because somebody says, "Oh, you should talk to my friend Glodean," and that's not really a coaching, but it is. You know what I mean? So in the space of coaching executives or leaders, let me just put it like that: people who want to be leaders or better leaders. My first and primary question is to understand how they see leadership. There's a million books on leadership, right? We all have our own internal definition of what leadership looks like. So if a leader says to me that they lead by fear, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but if the if the assessment of what they think leadership is more dictatorial or fear-based, now I understand that you think that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. There it is, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I just need to help you course correct to see how fear is affecting your team, right? Leaders who are willing to accept change and accept growth, then that focus is a little bit different, because now we're focusing on, again, back to the person and not the problem, but pushing them a little further to do some introspection. The hardest thing for us to do to raise our self-awareness is to actually be aware of how we show up, how we respond, how we react. And in the space of doing that, it creates a level of discomfort. And for so many people, nobody wants to be uncomfortable. In the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, especially. So in that space, I coach anyone who is having issues with race-based or difference, right? Leaders who have diverse teams and feel uncomfortable because they don't know how to perhaps give their people of color, people of color, they don't know how to give them feedback without crossing a line. And to me, it's like, okay, first thing, how about you stop looking at them through the lens of race or the lens of difference? How about you look at what they've done, and that's the thing you focus on. You don't change the inflection of your voice, because that's where we get into trouble, right? The person speaking feels like they need to say it a certain way, but the person listening hears it like you're talking to me like I'm dumb. And so now how am I even hearing what you're telling me I need to correct so that I can be a better employee, or so I don't lose my job? Because now I'm in defense mode, and then I say something back, and then you become in defense mode. So I coach and teach leaders how not to get into that trick bag.
It's such an easy thing to just stumble all over, trip all over yourself. And I think about this a lot, because it's just like, it's something that it took me a long time to realize where in my life I was doing things like that. And it really, for me at least, it boiled down to me. I was trying to control how someone was hearing what I was saying, instead of trying to say it in the way that I think I could say it best to them.
Exactly.
And it was this control thing. I was trying to shape things just right. Good intentions or not, most of the time good intentions, but irrelevant to what the message was that was landing, was coming across. I was trying to do too much, control things my way, and I just needed to, kind of like how you got started, you get vulnerable. Just ask, and then don't fill that space of that ask questions with your own answers. Don't fill it up. Just let it be empty. And what shows up, you might not like it. It's probably going to be at least a little bit uncomfortable, maybe a lot uncomfortable.
A lot uncomfortable.
Good.
Exactly. Good. Exactly. That's why I love to say people need to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because the minute, because here's the other thing, the opposite has not served us at all, right? What people don't seem to recognize is that your discomfort, you feel it before you even respond to it. Your stomach gets into a knot, or you feel like some tightness in your chest, or you maybe get butterflies, but your body is letting you know you're uncomfortable. So rather than just taking a moment and going, oh, wait, I don't really feel comfortable here. So what am I not comfortable with? Oh, it's that thing right there. Okay, so then I'll just be quiet. Again, here we go, back to quiet, right? I'm uncomfortable. So maybe rather than flee or go into freeze mode, or what is the other one, fight, how about you just silence yourself?
There's a way that I came across it recently, a question that I've started to kind of play with myself the last few years, and just trying to like figure out why I am the way I am, whether it's like good, bad, whatever, not judging it, just kind of trying to understand myself better.
Right.
And asking myself the question, what am I unwilling to feel? And sitting with that answer. And then I'm like, oh, okay. That's embarrassment is a problem for me. Why? What embarrasses me? What if I ask a stupid question? So I get a little embarrassed and I'm afraid to feel that way, so I won't ask it. And it's just like, they keep coming back. What am I unwilling to feel? What will I turn over heaven and earth to avoid feeling? And let's sit with that for a little while. Let's talk with someone about that.
Yeah.
Let's get vulnerable about that. Now that's,
Yeah.
I'm getting tingly just saying it out loud. I can feel it in my body when I say it out loud. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's empowering. That's the thing. I wish that Webster had figured out a way to define vulnerability in a way that doesn't show up as a weakness. Like Brene Brown has mastered the definition of vulnerability. The problem is it's not in the dictionary, and it's not our common definition of vulnerability. So when you say, be willing to be vulnerable to someone, they immediately see it as a sign of weakness rather than a sign of strength. So coaching someone into that space of vulnerability, it's kind of harder to do it virtually. I enjoyed it when it was in person because I could feel their discomfort. Like before their body did anything or their face did anything, I could feel their discomfort. And so I could get out in front of it by asking the right questions to help them recognize that you're uncomfortable right now. But the thing you're uncomfortable with may not be the thing that is that you should be afraid of. Maybe the thing that you're uncomfortable with is an opportunity for you to learn something, or if not learn something about the situation, learn something about yourself. So, turning it back to self and helping people recognize that, because if I didn't say this, it all begins with self. And we say a lot about self-love and self-care, but I feel like self-care, anybody can do self-care. You can take a bath, you can go to get a massage and get your nails done, whatever. But self-love is a bigger challenge. Self-love is this conversation that we're having. Self-love is being vulnerable, taking the time to look at yourself and be okay without judgment, like you just said, recognizing this is who I am. I'm not gonna put a flag in the sand and say this is who I am, deal with it, but just take a moment to recognize who you are and how you're showing up so that you can be better for other people. Because I know from experience, the minute you fall in love with you, not from an ego, but from the heart, you build relationships and create love in the relationships that you have with other people. It just happens naturally.
A few years ago, when you were looking at the coaching sphere, the coaching realm, and saw that it was crowded, I am really grateful that you said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. Because I'm just sitting here talking with you right now, and I swear, I've already said it a couple times. I want to do this. I want to do this all day with you. You are so great to talk to. I am so glad and grateful that you have been a coach by your nature most of your life, and that you are a coach now by profession as well. I can't wait to talk to you again. I'm probably going to bug you in a couple of weeks. Do you want to do another episode? Because it's just this is so much fun.
Absolutely.
Before we go, because I do have to get you out of here, but please tell the audience where, and it's kind of a two-part question. Where can people just find out more about you? Website, social media, whatever. And where do you like to connect with people and engage people and meet new people? Do you have a particular social media that you really like to connect with people on? Do you how do you like to meet and build relationships with new people?
Okay, so the website is glodeanchampion.com. That's the easy part.
Easy one.
And the about page is my favorite page because it's my story. If you go down to the part that's my story, it tells my story. And then I'm on I'm on LinkedIn. I forgot there's a million of them now. On LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm open to meeting people however they want to meet. So if you can also email me at love@glodeanchampion.com.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. I was it almost just came out. I was like, oh, I love that. But having spoken with you for 30 minutes makes all the sense in the world to me. Glodean, man, thank you again. I keep saying it, but I'm going to keep feeling it. So I'm going to keep saying it. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for talking with me. Thank you for sharing yourself a little bit with everybody. And this has been great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And to the audience out there, just in case it's not super duper clear, please find out more about Glodean. Read that story. The taste you got here, I can tell it's the tip of the iceberg. Connect, find out more. You will not regret it. And we will talk to you again very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.